Now, this may have been the one with the most tangents and analogies, but what we covered was those cringy questions that prospects see coming a mile away. And the first one we covered, what was the first one? How does that make you feel? And why
Yep.
it's a massive red flag.
Yep. 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 Yeah. How does it make you feel? Look, we did have some big tangents. We went off on a chess and a jiu-jitsu tangent, but we brought it back to being relevant. The outcome from it was it's often incongruent with how we speak in our real life. And I don't really like asking questions or structuring questions or using language in a way on a sales call that I wouldn't use in real life. It's not how I want to represent myself. It's not how I want to communicate with people. And a lot of the questions have been so played out as well, like, and how did that make you feel? That anyone with any degree of savviness they can see what you're doing. They know what you're doing. And it's a boring question as well. So, I guess this is an appeal to use a bit more of your imagination and creativity. Be open to the idea of going the non-direct route to get the pot of gold. And often there's a bigger pot of gold when you go that way as well. And we gave some examples of that too. So fun call.
Yeah, we did go through a couple of examples, but I think to finish that up, if you go the typical route now, prospects are too educated. And not only are you not going to get a pot of gold, you're probably going to piss someone off. So we went through a couple of different ways to go about it, but we hope you enjoy.
I did a post today. I don't know if you saw it. See my post today?
No.
It was on consequence questions. I didn't say the specific famous one, but, a common theme I get when I get a new student in who's been around the block, which is most of them, they've done the rounds with all the names that you know, is they often say to me, words to the effect of, Michael, this is all great, blah, 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 blah. But where do I find your consequence questions? Or don't you ask consequence questions? I get a version of that all the time. I got it again yesterday with a new guy from Tassie that came in the group, second Tasmanian after Sam Payne. And he asked that, and I explained to him how I don't have what you would consider a consequence question. However, I have questions that get me the terrain that is set up to cover, just not in such an awkward, telegraphed, clumsy, non-normal way of communicating that often that question is structured in. So that was a post and that was a conversational point today. I don't know. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, we may as well, because I just that question works when the internet doesn't exist.
Let's go one step further.
Yeah.
Awkward, clumsy, inappropriate questions that for some reason someone said work well on a sales call, but you wouldn't. A, we probably don't believe they do, and B, you would never talk to somebody like that in real life if you wanted to go better, because there's a lot of it.
Yeah, there is a lot.
There's a hell of a lot. Like even the feels one. Like on the coaching call I just got off, we role play a scenario, and one of the guys, his training showed from a famous trainer a famous way of responding, and pretty much the first question he asked was, "And how did that make you feel?" And I stopped him there and I said, "You know what? I never actually asked that question. Now, do I want to know how they feel or felt or would feel? Yeah, absolutely. Of course I do. Like emotion is such a huge component of what we're looking for in a sales call. But do I actually structure the question of, and how did that make you feel, James? And all the variations of that? I never do it. No. I never actually ask people how they feel. And then I think about that in real life, and I don't really in real life either. I structure it very, very differently. I am asking them how they feel or how they would feel or how they felt, but not that directly. So, that time.
If we talk about that in real life, though, just off the cuff here, if I was having a conversation with someone, they were having a bit of a tough time, I would just say, walk me through what happened. Take me through it. Yeah. What was that like?
Yep.
That's all I'm going to ask. What was that like?
Yeah.
If I would ask someone, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, I would never.
Afterwards.
I would never ask that.
And if someone asked you that, what are you going to do?
I'd kind of cringe. I mean, I'm trying to think of a scenario where that would be the appropriate question. I'm sure I could think of one if I really thought about it, but nothing comes to mind.
So the only way that's such a simplistic question, because if you're having a conversation with someone about something that's really important to them and you ask them how that made them feel, they have to take this whole plethora, breadth, whatever you want to call, of emotions that they're experiencing, and they have to break it down into one thing, like a very simple, and it takes away, I think, a lot of the pressure. So how did that make you feel?
Yeah.
Frustrated. Oh, I bet. It's kind of
Yeah.
like you're speaking to a child. How did that
Yeah.
make you feel?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different ways you can cover that terrain without structuring it that directly. And for anyone that's been on more than a couple of phone calls with a typical salesperson, it's such an obvious, you can see it coming a mile away question, and it doesn't feel safe. So I just completely stay away from it for two reasons. I don't believe it's effective compared to alternatives, and it just feels clunky and awkward. And I don't talk like that. So I try to have very little discrepancy, I guess you could say, between how I speak as we're speaking right now and in real life. And you know me in real life, and you know I speak like this. And on a sales call, it's pretty much the same. Like, there are little minute differences, of course. You always adjust to the context and the audience and the energy of the interaction. Of course you do. But generally speaking, it's pretty much the same. I use the same vocabulary, um, structure
Yeah,
sentences.
it's consistent.
It's the
It
same.
is. I think one limitation of asking someone how they feel as well is you've got to ask the question, what's more important? Having the prospect or the person experience the emotion
Yeah,
or say an emotion?
yeah,
So if you get them to experience it, the way I do it, I've said it a million times, is I get them to recount a story. So maybe they're not taken seriously in the workplace. Take me for a walk through the last time that happened. Who was there? What happened next? They're feeling that, which is
yeah.
the driving power, but getting them to say it doesn't add any more impact. You need them to feel the emotion for them to logically make the decision, but getting them to say something without feeling it is just nothing.
I just think it lacks creativity. It lacks creativity and imagination. And when you ask it a different way, don't get me wrong, we want emotion. Just to reiterate that point, we want emotion. I'm just not going to go so direct and so obvious as my track to get there. So, like, if you've just told me that, I don't know, um, you feel invisible because you were looked over for the promotion by your boss, which you think you deserved and earned, and you were promised it. My first question wouldn't be, and how did that make you feel? A lot of salespeople, that would be pretty much their first question if that was just disclosed. I wouldn't do that. Don't get me wrong, I'm going to get some feeling, but I'm not going to go that direct route. I'm going to segue for a second, and
Love
it's
the
going to
tangent.
develop. This is a tangent, and I just realised this in real terms. So, I've got an 8-year-old son, James, and
Great name.
James has been learning chess for about 2 years, and he loves it. And I never learnt chess as a boy. I didn't play my first game until I was about 20, 21, no formal training. Anyway, he's beat me 3 times out of the 100 times we've played. We're not far. I can already see it. If things keep going the way they're going, he's going to beat me more than I'll beat him by the end of this year, the way we're tracking. Anyway, Magnus Carlsen, who's the Michael Jordan of chess, was on Joe Rogan's podcast about a week or 2 weeks ago, and I saw it said somewhere it's worth watching. I don't watch Joe Rogan that much anymore, but I watched this one, and it was worth watching. Even if you don't like chess, go and watch it. Totally fell in love with his story and his energy and his way of thinking. Went down the Magnus Carlsen rabbit hole with James. We watched about 20 games of his and some tutorials dissecting his moves, and we're now already playing different on the back of that, and we'll keep going down this rabbit hole because it's super fascinating. Here's my point. The main thing I learnt from watching him play was when James and I play, two low-level an 8-year-old and an adult who's never had any training. When we play obvious moves and take the obvious opportunity. If a pawn moves into a position where it can take a knight, we take it every time. What I learned from, so we play really sort of methodical straight line chess, really obvious. Watching him play, he's leaving food on the table 24/7. Like, at any given moment in time, he can take like 5 pieces, but he doesn't take any of them because he's thinking like 15, 20 steps ahead, and it was amazing to see. My point there is he doesn't go the obvious track and take the low-hanging fruit and the really direct, obvious line that everybody can see. He's playing a different game, and because he's playing a different game, he's getting massively different results. So to bring it back to our conversation, I don't ask the obvious, straight down the line, oh my God, so much imagination question of, and how did it make you feel? So I'm going to get there, but I'm going to go a different way. So the first thing I might say in that scenario might be, And you're sure you're being looked over? You're sure there's not some surprise coming next week, or there's a misunderstanding here? No, 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 not at all. We'll tease that out, and we'll go down that track. And I go, okay. And on the back of that, what are your thoughts? I mean, you're okay with it? Not okay with it? Accept it? Don't accept it? I mean, how do you see it? Oh no, I'm absolutely devastated, Michael. Devastated? Well, yeah, I've been crying myself to sleep every night. Bang, I got feeling, but I got it a completely different way, and I probably got it better.
Mm.
Devastated, crying myself to sleep. I'm sure that I've been looked over. Like I got that within like 3 moves. There's some serious meat on the bone right now. I got what I needed, and I didn't ask you. And how did that make you feel? So that philosophy we can roll out all throughout a sales call, all throughout real life conversations. It's so much more creative. It's so much more fun. It gets you way better answers, and it's just so much more dynamic.
So, side note, another tangent. What you were saying about not taking the obvious route. So we learned a guillotine transition at jiu-jitsu maybe 2 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I was paired up with Felix. He's a black belt from a different club, but he comes and trains with us.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going through, and basically, you went from 90% of the way to a mounted guillotine, as
Mm-hmm.
in like there's pretty much nowhere for them to go unless they're ridiculously strong. And it was the pass, the setup, the transition, get in there. And then what Justin, the coach, was doing is he would basically fall off to the side and hip out so there would be a little bit of space. And then what happens, because naturally in jiu-jitsu, as soon as you get a little bit of space there, the person's going to basically go to their hands and knees and try and 4-point and wrestle out.
Yeah.
But then as soon as they do that, because you've given that little bit of space, like they think, oh, this idiot didn't see a guillotine, I'm out. Then as soon as they hip over, you lock up the legs and then you have them in a much, much more intense guillotine.
Yeah.
And he was teaching this, and I just said, Justin, who's going to be dumb enough to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Within 30 seconds of the first round with this black belt, I did it exactly, because that was the thought process of like, oh, he couldn't even cinch up a guillotine, which is pretty hard to do. And then instinct went straight through, and it was just the most obvious path is not always the best.
100%. 100%. So a couple of nice little tangents to illustrate the point of not going the direct, obvious, low-hanging fruit, one-move pass. And there's often a bigger, better, richer win waiting on the other side of it. So that was the example I used today to the group. Are there any other, I don't know, words that have been accepted as standard sales, approach that?
Why is that so important to you?
Yeah, God.
On a scale of 1 to 10, Michael.
Oh, God. Yeah, why is that so important to you? It's just, again, I want to know why it's important to you. Don't get me wrong. Like, what the question represents, I'm all about. I just don't like the way that you've chosen to get there. It's just so obvious. It's so, again, lacking creativity, lacking imagination. Not, because we want to be appealing to their self-interest. And part of appealing to their self-interest is saying things that are stimulating and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's so the opposite of that. Why is that important to you? Oh, and if it invites a lukewarm answer as well, at least initially. I'm not saying you can't move from that, but it just is. Yeah, but why? It's just like, shouldn't be here. There's a better way.
I think AI has helped me a lot in seeing the very literal outcome of this, because it's
Mm-hmm.
getting better now with its reasoning, but with chatbots, it was so binary. You'd tell
Mm-hmm.
it to do something and it
Mm-hmm.
would do it so literally. Like,
Yep.
for example, I was trying to do AI imagery for the ice bath company.
Yep.
And it was just like, I got Claude to do a prompt to put into Midjourney. And I told them the type of company, and the prompt was basically along the lines of, athletic male submerged in an ice bath, black stainless steel ice bath with floating pieces of ice. Now, it did all of that, but floating pieces of ice, it literally had floating ice in the
Ah.
air. It's like
Yeah.
floating.
Yeah.
And it was a
Yeah.
bit of a funny moment, but I've seen that happen so many times before.
Yeah.
There is the direct command, as in what you need to do, but then there are nuances, and there is a language in how to actually go about it. I see this as the same thing.
Sure. 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 Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see, because I know that there's already AI sales agents out there that you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure most of the audience does as well. I wonder how they go on the nuance side of things. I haven't looked into them at all. I've seen a little bit of them, but I haven't gone down the rabbit
Mm.
hole.
For me,
I
the only problem they have at the moment is latency, as in you'll say
right.
something,
And there's like 2 second pause or
and
whatever.
then it'll respond. And then if you interrupt as it's responding, it has this little spasm.
Uh,
They're getting much better, and apparently Hormozi's already using them as setters in his
right.
portfolio companies. And I was speaking to Daniel Matiana when he was in
Oh, yeah.
Australia,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he said there is a new AI communication model out that is just so unbelievably good that it's almost disarming for people. But then I also saw a couple of days ago, Matt Ryder posted this, that you have to make it very clear to the person that they're speaking to an AI agent.
Hmm.
Otherwise, there are humongous fines. I think that'll change over time. They'll probably just stick with chatbots.
What will change over time? The
Acceptance of AI as a communication method.
right, right, right. It's interesting because one of the key tenets of what I teach, as you know, is to make the other person feel heard and understood. Uh, like that's one of the first things I teach. It'll be interesting to see whether knowing that you're speaking to a non-human, people will feel heard and understood, even if they're saying the right things. The fact that I don't know the answer to this, by the way.
Have you
I
had a
just,
conversation with
no,
AI?
no, I haven't.
So, as an exercise, just download ChatGPT, the premium one, so you get advanced voice on your phone. Just pay for a month. I think it's $20, and
I,
just
I don't even use it. I've been paying for like 2 years. I don't even use it.
have a
That's
conversation with it. Do
right.
advanced voice. Just sit by yourself and just try and talk about some kind of in-depth topic, and just say, "Hey, as you would a normal person, I've got this going on. I want to have a bit of a conversation." Just do it for an experience, and I think you will be blown away about
Yeah.
how human it can be. But now there are AI companion bots, and there are AI psychologist programs as well. Some people even build custom ones, and phenomenal. You don't have to worry about the psychologist having a bad day, or maybe they had a family member and it triggers them or something like that. It's
Mm,
insane.
yeah. Yeah. Interesting. No, I asked my question completely neutral, not loaded at all. I genuinely don't know because I haven't thought about it, let alone done it yet. But I mean, this is potentially, well, not potentially, this is coming slash already is here. It will be different conversation for a different day, maybe, but it will be very different, very, very interesting to see the impact it has on the work that we do.
Mm.
How much of us get made redundant as people doing the roles that we're doing. I don't know the answer to this either, by the way. Do you know anything about that? What are your
Mm.
thoughts?
I I think for very consistent, repetitive job, I think setters might be in a bit of trouble. And the
Okay.
reason is, like, we think about AI setters in human terms, as in it calls one person, it calls another, it calls another. Well,
Yeah.
no, it can call your full database of 50,000 people simultaneously
Yeah.
and have 50,000, or probably answer rate, maybe 5,000 simultaneous conversations, track everything. And then you can set up, well, what does it actually take for a sale to happen in this company? What was said on all of these set calls? How do we pre-handle this? Then it'll change its own funnel and then pre-call.
Yeah. That's yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. But the thing that I say, and this is what I say to everyone, you would much rather be the person wielding the sword than the
Mm,
one it's pointed at. And I don't think it will completely replace whole industries for a while, but I
mm,
think one person with AI will replace probably 20 to 30 people.
Interesting. More research needed from my end. I know you're
Mm.
more than I am.
But Michael, how does that make you feel?
Uh, um, yeah, not too bad. That doesn't
Mm.
really worry me much. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. What was the other question you said earlier?
How important is that to you? On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is
On
it
a
to you?
scale of 1 to 10, how important is it to you that you don't lose your job to AI, James?
Oh, how important is it to me?
Yes.
Oh, it's a 10 out of 10, Michael.
Oh, 10 out of 10. It tells me
Yeah,
it's really important to you, James.
it's
Tell me,
very
James, why is it so important?
I can't even do it. And what's crazy is we delivered that so many times
Well, yeah, but
10,
that was
12 years
15
ago.
years ago. That was 15 years ago in a different world.
Yeah.
They were the old fitness days, face-to-face sales. Very different world.
Mm.
Very different world to right now. We didn't know what we now know. We weren't able to do what we now are able to do, and the world has changed as well. Any other ones that we should add to the list, or is that enough for now? We've got
No,
the
I think if we
material.
nicely tie a bow on it, basically
Yeah,
don't ask the really one frame, one outcomed questions, because
sure.
prospects are going to know. Dig a little bit deeper, be a little bit more uh, thoughtful in the way that you perhaps ask these questions.
Yeah, get a bit more creative as well. And look, the easy way to think about it is always, how would I respond if I was on the other end? Like, would I see this question coming a million miles away? Would I feel comfortable answering this question? Would I want to answer this the way it's been asked to a stranger? If you don't like the answer that comes back, it's probably a good prompt to reconsider how you ask it. If it feels salesy, if it feels clunky, it probably is because it is. And those things rarely serve you on a sales call, especially as you deal with more sophisticated, more savvy, more aware people as you move on to better offers, selling to high level people, which if you're half good at what you do and half serious about what you do, you probably should aspire to do, because having done both ends of the spectrum, both of us, like, that's a much better selling existence as a salesperson.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well,
Cool.
this was fun, and I will see you on the next one.
See you next week, James.